Welcome to the WagerTalk Podcast for the week ending Sunday, August the 12th. I'm Ralph Michaels, sitting in for Marco D'Angelo, joined in studio with Teddy Covers and Dave Cokin. Marco taking the week off with his lovely wife up in Seattle, going to the Pearl Jam concert. If you're going to go to a Pearl Jam concert, no better place to see it.
And if you're going to take a week off, the time to do it is now, before the madness of football really comes into play. Yep. Because it's coming. It's basically already here.
Marco tweeting out pictures of food, which is not surprising.
Yeah.
He tweeted out a crab, this big plate full of crab yesterday, which looked really good.
We are joined by our newest member of WagerTalk, Kelly Stewart. You can follow her on Twitter, Kelly in Vegas. Kelly is a Vegas mainstay. She is basically our new Patrick Everson, giving us some sportsbook insights. And for those that don't know, Kelly has been a proxy for quite a while, and we want to make our customers aware the Golden Nugget contest is new and exciting. The Las Vegas Superbook contest continues to take off. Kelly, welcome to the show. Talk to us about the contests that you proxy and walk us through the proxy service and what you offer customers and exactly how much that cost.
Thanks, guys. I just wanted to say how happy I am to be with WagerTalk and working with such a great group of guys. As far as the proxy service goes, you mentioned both of the two largest contests in town. There's a few others, but we'll go over the Westgate SuperContest first and the SuperContest Gold. $1,500 buy-in for the original SuperContest. 5 picks every week against the spread. The lines don't change. That's always a question I get. Well, I got to get them in early because the lines change. No, actually they don't. They are frozen on Wednesday afternoon. You can pick your favorite 5 games against the spread. I always tell people don't pick the Thursday night game. But, you know, if it's something you really love, you can do that. And last year there was 2,800 people. This year there's going to probably be around 3,500 is what they're projecting, over $1.5 million prize pool. And then they have a new contest from last year called the SuperContest Gold, exact same structure, $5,000 buy-in, winner take all. I'm not sure I love the winner take all. I feel like it should be like top 3 get paid because second place has got to really hate their life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's a tough deal, but, if you do win it all, it's going to be a lot of money, that's for sure. Now, the Golden Nugget contest, they did a big format change this year. It used to be sides and totals, college and pro. It was
just college.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I said it used to be sides and totals, college and pro.
It used to just be college sides and totals.
No, you could play the NFL totals in the Golden Nugget.
Yeah. The Golden Nugget used to just be college. Am I correct, Kelly?
No, I think you're wrong on that.
I think I got to side with Dave because it was NFL sides, totals, and college sides and totals, and that's what made it such a nightmare and why I hated the contest.
Well, because it was basically an advantage player contest. There wasn't any real and I'm not knocking anybody who's done well in the contest, but there was not as much handicapping done because you just had to play those 3- and 4-point line swings, especially on college football totals. No more totals. It's now 7 college and or pro sides. And I think it's going to be, to me, if you're looking for something where it encompasses the entire gamut of football, college and pro, and it's strictly handicapping, I think this is the contest. And it's only $1,000, too.
I absolutely agree with you. Tony Miller's, we all know Tony. Tony's a great guy, and I think he finally, after last year, listened to what the people really wanted. Because you're right. Like, I know some really sharp guys in town that would play 7 college totals in the contest, and when it used to be the bracket format, it advanced to the top 8 every time. And so it kind of makes you want to beat your head against the wall. For people like me that like to play dogs, or, people like you said that like to play a little bit of NFL, a little bit of college, it's a really great contest. Last year, I think they had a little bit over 100 entries. This year, they're looking to get about 200. And the best part about the Golden Nugget contest compared to the Westgate, because the Westgate spends so much money to host the SuperContest, and they do SuperContest weekend, and it requires so many man hours that they take an 8% cut out of the contest money. The Golden Nugget, everything goes back to the top 20 finishers. First place, you get 40% on down. 11 through 20, you get your $1,000 back. That's another difference. Last year, the contest was $2,000. This year, it's $1,000 buy-in, and you can have 2 entries.
The exciting thing is, and I think a lot of the listeners don't realize, you don't have to live in Vegas to take part in this contest. That's why we wanted to bring Kelly on now with a couple weeks left before the season for our listeners to know fly in, make arrangements with Kelly. You have to go together. Am I correct in that?
Absolutely. So you do have to go. I'll come down. We'll meet you. I'll buy you a beer. We'll talk a little football. And the sign-up process is so simple. Both casinos have made it so simplified. It takes probably 15 or 20 minutes, so you can still enjoy some time in Vegas.
And the beauty of both contests are great. One gives you an opportunity to win a tremendous amount of money and get a lot of publicity if you win. There's no question about that. The other, the Golden Nugget contest, and I get asked, and I'm sure all of us get asked this question because we're all veterans in the industry, how do we break in to the sports betting industry in terms of being able to market selections and stuff like that? I have to tell you, I don't know, because I've been in it since 1981, so I've got it before just about anybody, and I don't have to worry about building an audience, but if you're looking to build an audience now, it's difficult. Well, one thing you can certainly do is do well in a contest like the Golden Nugget. That is something where you're putting up your money. You can indicate to people that you do know what you're doing. There's also a chance because we are going to have contestants on throughout the season on Fridays to display their handicapping expertise by running down their 7 selections. It's a great way to build your brand, if you will, by entering that contest. If you're looking to break into this industry, that is, in my opinion, the single strongest way of doing so right out of the gate.
I gotta agree with you, Dave. That it really does. Look at the guys, the CH Baller guys, a couple of years ago when they won. The 5 of them. I mean, they were asking me every week on Twitter, "Well, who should we go with? What's the best route?" In terms of putting yourself out there to have people. You have your name on that big check. Now people want to know how you did it. There's a lot of luck to certain contests, but the Golden Nugget, I will agree with you, is more handicapping than luck.
Kelly, I know you do a great job as a proxy. You give the confirmations, you take the picture of the tickets, but tell people the process. If they're going to fly into Vegas in the next couple weeks, use you as a proxy, what would the week-to-week normality be?
So it's actually really great. My partner, Brett, and I were the first to really streamline the process. Instead of just sending in a random text and hoping that your proxy got your plays in, we formulated a simple login form on our website. So you would come to Vegas, sign up with us. We'd give you your credentials to log into the website. You log in. It actually generates you an email form right back, double-check your selections. We get your selections and put them for you. Once they're inputted, we email you a copy of your ticket so that you actually have a tangible thing that says, okay, I know this was submitted, and I know this was submitted correctly. A lot of companies can't do that. Either they have entirely too many customers to try to keep up with that, or maybe they just don't care to. Another thing is like I said, I really am a personalized person. I really love to meet people, so I try my hardest to go down and meet every single one of our clients, either at the Westgate or Golden Nugget, buy you a beer, talk to you, get to know you a little bit, because for 17 weeks, we have to be in somewhat of a contact. People, sometimes they forget their plays. I'm over there texting them Saturday morning going, hey, guys, you forgot this week, and people are going, oh, my God, thank you so much, Kelly. I joked with one guy after last year. He forgot too many times. I said, this year you're giving me your wife's number because I'm calling her on Saturday mornings when you forget.
That's awesome. Tell people how to get a hold of you for the proxy service.
So super easy. You can email me at proxy@kellyinvegas.com. You can go to the website, proxy.kellyinvegas.com. You can find me on Twitter @KellyInVegas. Just shoot me a message, and I'll get back to you. I usually try to get back to people within the hour or so, depending on what time it is that you submit either an inquiry on the website or on Twitter. So I think that's something that I feel is really important, is a very prompt, personalized service.
And we want to point out, just for the record, that if you use Kelly as a proxy, it does not mean that you have to play Kansas State every week in the Golden Nugget contest.
I actually would only advise against it in a few probably choice plays, maybe bet them not
against
versus
Kansas,
Oklahoma this year, maybe versus Kansas, depending on how many points we're going to get against Texas. But yes, overall, this K-State season win total 6 really scares me, so probably don't play them every week.
But you do have to play the Broncos every week if you're in the SuperContest.
No, that sounds terrible as well. That's another team. Ralph told me, he goes, do you want to talk about your teams today, too, when we got you on? I'm thinking, well, my fellow fans are not going to be very happy with me, but we sure can.
For those that follow Kelly or will follow Kelly, Kelly in Vegas is her Twitter handle. Football is her passion, and to the forefront is going to be, as we mentioned, the Denver Broncos and the K-State Wildcats. Well, You gave us a couple niblets into that. Bill Snyder, 8-5 last year, 13 starters back, 8 on the offense, 5 on the defense. Problem is, you look at what they did at home, 3 losses before barely beating Iowa State in the finale. Are they going to have that double-digit win season, or do you think they're going to be closer to the Mendoza line?
Unfortunately, I think there's a lot of toss-up games, and that's what makes me nervous. We talked about a couple close games last year. In my opinion, I was at the Vanderbilt game. Probably shouldn't have lost it. A couple bad calls, which you can only blame so much on, and just really horrible quarterback play. The Texas game lost in double overtime. Oklahoma, K-State blew a big lead at halftime and lost in overtime to Oklahoma. The West Virginia game, another ugly one-point favorite loss. And like you said, they barely squeaked out a win at Iowa State. It's tough. It's tough to say what we're going to see from this team. I will say that during the bowl game last year, Skylar Thompson was the starting quarterback over Alex Delton, and at halftime they elected to go with Delton, and he just electrified the crowd, put on a huge show. So I think K-State fans are really excited to see what he can do now. Mind you, he's coming off an injury. Always a concern of mine. I know we talk about that a lot on Wager Talk, that I'm never sure how people can fully rebound, and hopefully he stays healthy. This defense is a little iffy to me, only returning 5 starters. I've heard some good things from Manhattan, Kansas, that the defense is going to be okay. I am very excited, though, to have new defensive coordinator, Blake Seiler. He actually was a defensive end when I went to Kansas State, so I'm excited to see what he can do. He's been in the Bill Snyder system since he graduated as a GA on up. And then Andre Coleman, one of my favorite K-State players back in the 90s, is now our new offensive coordinator. So there are some really positives to go with this K-State team. I think Vegas is down on them a little bit. I think we have a toss-up game here right away with Mississippi State. I talked to Jeff Sherman over at Westgate, and I said, hey, I made this game 3. Am I crazy? Am I being a homer? And he goes, I'd make it less. And then they ended up hanging at 3.5, and I laughed. And I said, how much SEC bias is built in that line? He goes, just a couple points. The at West Virginia game, I'm terrified of. At Baylor, I don't really know what to make of this Baylor team. Texas at home, Oklahoma State at home, Kansas at home, Texas Tech at home. I think that right there is the 6 wins. At Iowa State is always a tough place to play. So you kind of get a back and forth with me, and that's just because I honestly need to see this K-State team play. I don't know if you guys heard wind of it. Bill Snyder just signed another 5-year deal today through 2022. Kind of crazy. So I apparently he still wants to coach. He seems really happy about it and upbeat, and I guess that's just how I have to be as a fan perspective. But be looking at me to play K-State probably as a home dog, and other than that, I probably will not touch any of their games this year.
You know, Teddy, Dave, and I are going to be talking about the AFC West in our next segment. You, of course, are huge Bronco fans. Just one question. We're not going to ask you to break down the team. Over or under the 7 wins?
So that's kind of the thing. I looked at it, and initially I was like, good grief, when they first came out. This is not good. I do have some good guys in Denver that like to share stuff with me. I will say this, side note, I'm a huge Vikings bettor. I love the Vikings. I love Coach Zimmer. And what Case Keenum was able to do last year was pretty capable, and he did well, and he limited his mistakes. So I'm going to carry that over to Denver. The Denver defense is not as good as the Vikings defense. They still have some holes. I'm hoping they can have a better year this year, and thus keeping them off the field as much. You know, we don't have Trevor Siemian under center anymore. Case Keenum, if he can just dink and dunk passes. You know, they still have Emmanuel Sanders. They still have Demaryius Thomas. I just don't see this team not winning 7 games.
I'll tell you one thing I like about them. I love their first-round draft pick. And their defensive, they're going to rush the passer. Okay, they're going to create havoc for opposing offensive lines. And that could be a real strength for the Broncos this year.
I really hope you're right, and I want to see what Royce Freeman does myself. Everybody keeps asking me if I'm going to draft him in our big league fantasy team with Johnny, and I'm like, yeah, maybe in like the 2nd or 3rd round. Everybody calm down.
Appreciate it, Kelly. Again, tell us how to contact you as a proxy. Again, you don't need to live in Vegas. Making a trip, meet Kelly, sign up for either of the contests. And, Kelly, how do they get a hold of you?
You can find me at proxy.kellyinvegas.com, at Kelly in Vegas on Twitter, and just for our WagerTalk podcast listeners, as we did with the video, WagerTalk50, just send me the code when you want to sign up. Let me know. We're going to take $50 off your proxy fee, so you're going to get it for $250 for the season instead of 300.
Awesome. We appreciate you being on, Kelly, and we'll be talking to you to videos next week. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
And we'll mention that Kelly's going to be on with us on Monday on the Las Vegas Sports Line, which airs on ESPN Radio, ESPN Las Vegas, online, lvsportsnetwork.com. We're on 2 to 3 p.m. Pacific time on a daily basis. I'm the host every day. Ralph's with us a couple of days a week. Teddy's with us a couple of days a week. And we've got a great guest lineup, including the top bookmakers in town. And Monday's a perfect example. In addition to Kelly, we'll have Chuck Esposito from Station Casino Sunset Station joining us to break down more NFL. Chuck says about as sharp as it gets in the NFL. So make sure and mark it down and listen to the show.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back talking about the AFC West.
It's Manic Monday, and that means every pick at WagerTalk.com is just $9. Get a play in any sport valued at up to $30 for just $9 each and every Monday at WagerTalk.com.
Welcome back to the WagerTalk Podcast. This is Ralph Michaels sitting in for Marco D'Angelo. I'm joined in studio with Dave Cokin and Mr. Teddy Covers. We are going to break down the AFC West. This is our handicapping corner. We've been breaking down certain situations or handicapping techniques to help out our listeners, and we broke down the AFC North last week. We'll go to the West and the local teams that we have here, and we're going to start off with the AFC West. We'll start off with last year's champs, Kansas City. While Kansas City went 10-6 last year, they are actually the second favorite this year as far as the season win totals, with a win total of 8.5. Dave, your take on the Chiefs?
Well, look, you got a first-time starter at quarterback, basically. I mean, Mahomes is brand new to the position, and it doesn't mean a whole lot, but the early returns in exhibition in training camp, he's been a little bit inaccurate, and he's got some pressure on him. There's no question about that. On the other hand, he's got somebody who's pretty good at developing quarterbacks in Andy Reid. The Chiefs look like an okay football team. I think it's a good number on them, quite honestly. I think they're kind of a 500 team, give or take a game. I don't look at them as an outstanding squad that's going to make a long run in the playoffs if they get there, and I think it's 50-50 whether they get to the playoffs. The tough part is there might be one team that a lot of people think is standing out from the rest in the AFC West, which we're going to get to. I don't think the Chiefs are that team, Teddy.
Well, I mean, there's so much pressure on Patrick Mahomes. People don't seem to. I mean, in my mind, there's two things that people aren't thinking about for Kansas City. First, when you look at Andy Reid's track record in the regular season, I mean, it's second to none. He's Belichick without the hype. Kansas City has gone over their win total every single year he's been there. Philadelphia won double digits, 9 of his 11 seasons? I mean, it's a machine. And when Andy Reid, who you talked about how good he's been with developing quarterbacks, when Andy Reid says, yeah, I don't want that guy anymore, I want this guy, and that was all Andy Reid's choice. It wasn't a salary cap dump. They could have re-signed Alex Smith. Meaning Andy Reid, says, I wanted Patrick Mahomes as my guy. That's meaningful to me. And you look at the skill position talent around him, that team has weapons. They have the best weapons in the division by far. Defensively, KC was the number 29th ranked defense in the NFL last year. And they jettisoned a bunch of veterans in the offseason. Derek Johnson's gone and all this.
6 of their top 8 tacklers.
Yeah, that to me is the issue on the team.
Everything I'm reading about KC is, the defense is going to stink. All the big names. No, the defense is going to be better. The big names were old. That was the 29th ranked defense. It's not going to be worse in 2018 when the veteran coordinator says, I don't want the old guys with the egos and the contracts. I want the young guys. They drafted defense. I think their defense is an underrated unit right now, although in general, I think you're going to make money betting Chiefs games over the total.
I've never seen a draft like the Chiefs. 6 picks, defensive tackle, linebacker, safety, cornerback, defensive tackle. Your first 2 picks are DTs. You draft 3 DTs out of your 6 draft picks, and you don't even draft an offensive player. That just shows where they thought they had worked.
Yeah, and that to me is why the philosophy, and I've always taken issue with the philosophy of, we're going to just draft the best available player.
Need versus
to me,
best player.
Get the best available player at a position you really need to firm up. I like that angle for the Chiefs.
Sure. I mean, and same sort of in free agency. You're looking at KC and going, so why is Sutton getting rid of all these guys? Their defense coordinator. Oh, my God. What do they do?
Stop anybody.
Yeah, they're all, just because someone was once a Pro Bowler doesn't mean at 32 or 34 or 28 they're still a Pro Bowler, and they jettisoned some big names off that defense. There is questions about where the pass rush is going to come from, but it wasn't a good defense last year. Therefore, it's not likely to get any worse.
My one concern is this. When I think of Andy Reid's offense, I think of play action. And when you have a quarterback like Alex Smith who had a 29-5 ratio with Kareem Hunt rushing 4.9 yards per carry, can Mahomes demand that type of respect to run that play action? So we'll have to see what happens with that. But KC's total again was 8.5. That's the number 2 team in the West. The number 1 team, Dave, you mentioned it. It's the hot team coming out of Vegas this year. The LA Chargers went 9-7 last year, 3-3 in division play. Their over/under number to open at the Westgate was 9.5. Your thoughts on that Phillip Rivers-led team?
Look, a lot of weapons there. And Melvin Gordon getting back on the field is going to be a big plus for them. He's a quality running back. That's going to help Rivers. The big question on the Chargers is this, guys. At some point, will this team learn to finish off games? Because if you go back and look at the Chargers over the last couple of 3 years, this team, I don't know what the stat is, but it sure feels like they've probably blown more games in the fourth quarter than any other team. They have just had some horrible meltdowns in games that they had won, where they'll take a stupid penalty or there'll be a critical turnover or they'll just do something to screw the game up. Until they shed that tendency, they're a tough team to trust. I mean, if you're looking on paper, I can't really argue against those who think the Chargers are the best team in the division, not the conference, but the division. I like what Anthony Lynn brings. By the way, congratulations to Anthony Lynn, who got his undergraduate degree from UNLV in the offseason. I think he's an improvement over what they've had as a head coach, and I think there's a lot more enthusiasm right from the get-go. I used to get out to Chargers training camp on an annual basis when I was doing the multi-hour shows here at Lotus Broadcasting, and we did Chargers training camp every year. And the one thing that always struck me was, boy, and this was Norv Turner was there, and it was like the most relaxed atmosphere. It just fit in with San Diego. I mean, it was just zero, and we'd be sitting there, and it's just like, geez, is anybody excited about being here? I mean, I'm surprised there wasn't a beach ball on the field at practice. I think that's changed now. I think there's more intensity in this team, and maybe part of it, I still think they should be in San Diego. I think it's a shame that San Diego doesn't have a football team. But maybe getting out of that comfort zone and this, if you've never been to the old Chargers training camp, it was in a valley. It was just in a nice area. It was just so relaxed. That's not the kind of camp you want. Maybe it's a little bit different now. The Chargers sound like a more intense football team, and maybe that's one of the things they really need.
Yeah, I mean, San Diego. See, we say you still say it,
and we're going to say it for a few years.
It's a Freudian slip because that's where they belong.
The Rams, as soon as they moved from St. Louis, it's L.A. It was L.A. I didn't have any problem with that. But the L.A. Chargers, it doesn't stick. It doesn't sound right. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't roll off the tongue.
The Rams return,
and they're not
going
to be there.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, so did the Chargers technically because they were first the Los Angeles Chargers in the old AFL.
That's back
Sure,
when, I was
in
Well, I was, all right?
Yeah.
Okay, I was already like 7 or 8 years old, so you guys can stuff it.
But when we look at the Chargers, a couple of things stand out to me about this team. One, they have no home field edge.
No, they don't.
And we saw that so clearly last year, where every home game, the fans were for the opposing team. Nobody from San Diego drove up there. The L.A. fans have attached themselves to the Rams, not the Chargers. And when you're talking about a home field edge, minimal to none for the Chargers. So that stands out to me as well. Okay, why is this team lined as the best team in the division when their home field edge is the weakest in the division? Man, the Raiders might be there as well. We'll see how much love Oakland gets. But the other issue with the Chargers, of course, all this love. Phillip Rivers is great. Phillip Rivers this and Phillip Rivers that. Phillip Rivers chucks up balls for grabs in the fourth quarter with a lead. And we've seen him do it 500 times, and that's an issue for the Chargers. That being said, boy, their pass rush is scary.
Oof.
And when you have you have not one, not two, you have like 3-4 different elite edge rushers. It's not just Joey Bosa. It's when you have that type of a situation where there's going to be guys coming on every snap, it makes your whole defense a very different animal. And a team that's been on the wrong end of a lot of turnover differentials might end up being on the right end of the turnover differential this year.
Are you buying them as the division favorite?
Yes, they're the best team in the division on paper.
Dave?
Nah, the Chiefs are. I'm buying them as co-favorites with Kansas City. Okay. How about that?
I make the Chargers the favorite in the division. I'm not as bullish on them to win the whole thing as some people are. I know that they're going to be a liability for the books going into the season. But I think they're a playoff team.
And the one thing with the Chargers, we got to remember, the injury bug has struck this team hard in every recent season, and it's already, if you're saying which team's been hurt the most since the start,
got a couple of guys.
The Chargers lost key guys, not second-tier guys. You know, the Hunter Henry
this year,
is an impact player, and not the only one.
And
so,
by the way, one other thing, please, Chargers, get a guy who can kick the ball through the uprights when it matters. Seriously, you can't give away games like that. That's right. They gave away 2 games because they couldn't kick the football.
Another team we're going to be giving the wrong name out soon, Teddy?
No, it's the right name.
The Las Vegas Raiders.
They're already the Las Vegas Raiders.
You know what? We saw them go from 12-4 to last year and now back. And
12-4 was a complete fluke.
It was. That was the crazy coming back from all those games, beating Miami to start early in the year, and it just kept running and running into a magical season for them. But, now where are they now? Right now, they're off a 6-10 season, 2-4 in division play. The over-under opened at 8 in Vegas. Wow. 50-50 team, Teddy. Which way do you lean on them, over or under?
Oh, there's no way we're betting the Raiders over. They have unfrozen caveman lawyer as their head coach who they just signed for the next 10 years. All right. Everything I'm reading about John Gruden in Oakland has made me feel the worst about this team. Not something, not a little bit or half the stuff. It's like every single thing I read about Gruden is, really? Dude, that worked 20 years ago. That worked 20 years ago. That worked 25 years ago. Oakland, and you talked about the 12-4 season being a fraud. It was a fraud. The 6-10 gave us a whole new list of concerns for the Raiders. Can the offensive line? This is an offensive line that was elite, that everyone was signed long-term. Now the offensive line, a year later, is that unit any good? What's going to happen with the Carr? You have a quarterback that doesn't throw well under pressure, very clearly. If his offensive line is bad, does Carr continue to have a situation where he's putting up too many balls for grabs like he did last year? He's not someone that's going to create plays running out of the pocket. From a skill position standpoint, I'm not looking at Oakland and going, wow, You're
not afraid of Marshawn Lynch.
I'm not afraid of anybody on that team. From a defensive standpoint, again, and now mind you, they're having issues with Khalil Mack, who's the one guy on defense you have to game plan for. There's not another player on that defense that scares you. So Mack's not in camp yet. The negotiations are broken down or whatever. I mean, it's the Raiders to me are the last place team in that division.
I agree with that. And here's one other thing: if they're a good football team, then the home field advantage could still be strong.
Yep.
But if they're not a good football team, they're already last in the league in attendance. People are talking, the Raiders, great fan base. Their attendance has sucked for quite some time. And it's not really the fault of the Raiders.
Chargers is last. Chargers get.
Okay. That was going. They don't count. And I didn't count them because they
only seat 27,000.
Right, and it's a soccer stadium, and they're foreigners there. That's not a knock on the Raider fans, by the way.
No, not at all.
Okay, that's not a knock at all on the Raider fans, who I think the Raider fans themselves are absolutely fantastic. But, the stadium...
Worst stadium.
It's just horrific.
And it's hard to love your team the same way when you know they're leaving next year.
And that's the thing. If this team gets off to a bad start, you're going to start to see something that maybe you've never seen in Oakland before, which is a situation where actually road team fans start outweighing home team fans. It could.
I think they're afraid to go.
Well,
no,
I don't.
You're not going to see the Chiefs fans going into Oakland.
I don't know. The only thing that might keep them away is the place is a dump and there's nothing else to do. Sorry, Oakland. It just isn't. It's not like when you go to some other cities, there's lots of entertainment value. In Oakland, I don't know. Unless you're looking for street fights at a Burger King, then there's not a lot of entertainment value. The team is not good. We talked at the very top here. We said the 12-4 was a fluke. It was. The 6-10 wasn't a fluke. That was about what they were. And it's not a division to me with one really dominant team, although the Chargers might come close. So they're going to win some games, but I don't see it. To me, the absolute ceiling for this team is 8-8, and I'd be really surprised if they got to that. I think they're going to be the last place team.
I'm just fascinated by Dave talking about street fights at Burger Kings, dude. Is that your thing?
No, I've seen.
Do you brawl?
Me?
Yeah, at Burger King as a kid.
No. I've seen videos from Oakland where it seems fast food restaurants seem to be.
Were they in color or black and white when you saw them?
No, that's. Well, if you wanted to make a film noir atmosphere, you could make it into black and white. Probably be pretty good. But no, I'm sorry. No, not meaning to insult Oakland, but you did it to yourselves, City. You should have built a new stadium 20 years ago to replace the garbage that you've got there. At Coliseum is a sin. And I think they're going to end up losing.
They could lose the A's, too.
I think they're going to end up. I think they will end up losing.
You go to that stadium, it is just like it is like a MAC football stadium. It really is. I mean, no disregard to MAC, but they're just stadiums put up with walls and bathrooms that are like ancient. And
I saw a football game in Ypsilanti once. I was there.
Eastern Michigan?
Well, I went to a lot of Kent State games, and it's really just bleachers, and it's the same thing as what Oakland is.
It's the MAC, which is, that's all right. It's not the National Football League, and I think the NFL is delighted that they're leaving Oakland, and I think the A's will eventually leave because they just can't seem. The mayor, she keeps talking. Oh, we're going to get a new stadium. No, you're not. Okay, let's face it. You're not, and you're going to lose the team, and they're going to end up in Vancouver or Portland. And good luck to them because the fans there will put a nice new stadium up for them, and they'll go to the games, and it'll make the team better too.
Yeah, the Portland Soccer Stadium puts the A's stadium to shame. I mean, the Timber Stadium up there, it's state-of-the-art.
Gorman High School puts... Yeah. It does. I'm being serious. It's smaller. But Gorman High School's football stadium actually puts the A's stadium, the Raiders stadium to shame. And we'll see on Gruden. I have a tendency to agree with you on the assessment of Gruden. I think he's been removed from the game a long time, and it's changed, and I'm not sure he has.
Last team to talk about, we mentioned them with Kelly, the Denver Broncos. Up until 2015, they were just the mainstay winning this division year in and year out. After back-to-back 12-4 seasons, we saw them fall to 9-7 a couple years ago and back to 5-11 last year. Obviously, quarterback changes this year, a lot of personnel. 7 was their win total after a 5-11 season, 2-4 in division play. Teddy, start us off with the Broncos and where you have them with that 7-win total.
Well, it's funny because there was a lot of thought. Initially, coming out of last year, it felt like an anomaly for Denver. It didn't feel like a franchise that was past its prime. It didn't feel like a bunch of players that were just cashing checks. It just felt like a season that everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And I like the fact the Broncos didn't press the panic button. It wasn't a complete rebuild. They're like, hey, we need a freaking quarterback. And, they found a freaking quarterback in Mr. Keenum. And the question, of course, is that can he regain the same magic that he had last year in Minnesota when he was, let's be honest, extremely well coached?
Well, when you have that O-line and those running backs, it's a little bit different than the Broncos.
Well, I thought like Minnesota was heavy on the running back. Dalvin Cook got hurt, and Adam Thielen didn't come into last year as a superstar in the NFL. Keenum deserves some credit for what happened last year, but so does the coaching staff. And the question is, how much is that going to translate? Because this is a guy, we all saw him play in Houston. We watched him play. He wasn't a quarterback who was like, oh, he's going to be the second coming. At no point in the last year, all of a sudden, he was until it mattered most in the postseason, and then he looked like the quarterback who was a little bit flustered. Now you look around the division. KC has defensive issues. Oakland has defensive issues. Only the Chargers have a team with a proven pass rush who can make a quarterback a little bit more uncomfortable than Case Keenum was while he was succeeding last year. But Denver as a team, at 7 wins, the gut is, we got to bet them over. Of course they're going to bounce back. And the more I looked at them, I haven't bet the Broncos over yet. I'll put it that way. I thought about it a lot, but I haven't gotten to the window.
Yeah, I kind of lean that way, though. And I didn't bet it either because I think there are some question marks. But, I mentioned I think he could be dominant right away as a rookie, especially with Miller on the other side. His Chubb, I love that pick. I thought Cleveland should have taken him with the first pick in the draft. He's going to be an elite guy, in my opinion. I think Keenum's a big upgraded quarterback where the team – it's not that Keenum is the greatest quarterback in the league. We're not trying to make that – he's not Tom Brady. But their quarterback play was so bad the last couple of years that I think the entire team had no confidence that these guys could do anything except hand the ball off, and that if they were going to throw, it was a question as to which team would end up with the ball every time. I think Keenum is going to instill some confidence in the offense and allow them to do some things that they just didn't even try to do the last couple of years. He's going to open up the offense a little bit. That should help them in every regard. The defense, I think, is going to be improved, and I can definitely see the Broncos, not as a dominant team, but I can see them getting back to 500 or maybe a little above that, and I would lean to the over 7 myself.
Those quarterbacks you're talking about, the trio of Simeon, Osweiler, and Lynch.
How can you be confident?
58.7%, a 19-22 ratio. That's a 73.0 quarterback rating.
And that's the thing. When Lynch was on the field, it was clearly a guy who, sorry, Paxton, you looked like you didn't know what you were doing.
No.
Osweiler, he's just not very good. Simeon, I think, actually gets the most out of his talent because I don't think he possesses any of the real NFL qualities as a quarterback. But he'll go out and have an occasional good game. At least he maxes out his abilities. So, to me, he's a good backup. I like a guy like that as a backup. None of them are starting quarterbacks, though, and it really showed in the way the Broncos had to game plan every game.
And remember, they traded up into the first round to get Paxton Lynch. They dumped future draft capital to make that move.
Oops.
Yeah, exactly. And look, they're certainly not the first team that's made a mistake at quarterback.
John always made some good moves. That just wasn't one of them.
Yeah. Look, they've had a great run.
Yeah.
They finally had except for the Patriots, evidently, everybody has to bottom out at some point, and they kind of did. That's not a knock on the Broncos.
The Patriots,
great organization.
It's coming for New England. It hasn't happened yet.
It's going to happen.
And as you pointed out, though, part of the reason when you look at a team that's not normally a last place team that falls back, they're now playing that last place schedule. So you've got those couple games where you're playing the opposite fourth place teams in the other division, which can give you a couple wins when you're the better team.
Sure, but on the other hand, when you look at the last place team, it's only 2 games, one road, 1 home. And if you happen to be in a situation, guess what? I played the other bad injury-riddled team that this year is going to be way better.
Absolutely.
the 2 games are, no, really? This is my last place schedule? And plus, when you have a last place schedule, we're playing all the good teams in your division. All the teams in your division are going to be lined higher than you are. So you end up, on a strength of schedule standpoint, playing a tougher schedule.
Right.
Than you might think for most last place teams.
Great stuff, guys. That's the AFC West. We'll break down another division next week in the NFL. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. We're going to talk Friday and Saturday preseason football. Be back in just a minute.
Every Tuesday, WagerTalk.com offers a best bet selection from its hottest handicapper. It's a great way to introduce yourself to WagerTalk.com with a big best bet winner for just $2 on $2 Tuesday.
Welcome back to the WagerTalk Podcast. This is Ralph Michaels sitting in for Marco D'Angelo, joined in studio with Mr. Dave Cokin and Teddy Covers. We're going to break down a couple games. Obviously, when you're talking preseason football, so much has to do with the quarterback rotations and what you learn that last day or the morning of the games. So, again, this is just a quick general analysis of these games. We're not going to be able to give you a lot of information in advance, but perhaps help you with a few handicapping techniques when you're looking at these situations. On Friday, Atlanta travels to the New York Jets. Jets now a 3.5-point favorite, a total of 34.5. In this game, you have Josh McCown, Teddy Bridgewater, and Sam Darnold. So a great rotation as far as quality quarterbacks going to play. Dave,
I don't think McCown's going to play. I think Bridgewater is going to log quite a bit of action here, and so is Darnold. Teddy Bridgewater is really excited about this, and that's one of the things you do want to look for in preseason. It doesn't mean he's going to have a great game because we don't know about how sound he is physically, but I can tell you this, Teddy Bridgewater is really looking forward to getting back on the field. He got out on the field a little bit last year, but it was very little, and he has a chance to be the number 1 quarterback here. McCown's the favorite going in. Darnold is obviously a high draft pick. Teddy, if he's healthy, and that is a big question, but if he's healthy and he's got his old mobility, he could win the job. And that's what he's not out there just happy to be there. Let's see what happens. He's taking the approach that he can win this job. They like what they're seeing out of Darnold, like typically what you'll see out of first-year quarterbacks. He's thrown some interceptions in camp. He's probably going to throw a couple in the games too, but they are enthused about him. I do like the fact that the Jets have what looks like a legitimate three-way battle for quarterback, at least at the outset. And that means more game planning than usual right out of the gate so they can try and get an idea of who really looks the best and give each guy a fair chance of winning the job. So that, to me, is a plus on the Jets, and I think that has a lot to do with why this number moved.
I completely agree. And you look at the Jets, McCown, Bridgewater, Darnold. You look at Atlanta, you have Ryan, Schaub, Grayson, and then Benkert, a rookie. Having three quarterbacks is a big advantage in the preseason. You're getting more reps in practice. You're getting more playing time. Do you look at that, Teddy, when you're handicapping games?
Well, one of the things yes, I do look at that, but it's not normally a deciding factor for me when it comes to betting the preseason. And a lot of it is you look at the QB rotations, that's not going to help you at all unless the coach says this is what the game plan is. So-and-so is going to play a series, and so-and-so is going to play the rest of the half, and so-and-so is going to be in the third quarter. We'll see if we can get so-and-so in to get work in the fourth. There are oftentimes you'll see a quarterback come in the fourth quarter. You're like, I don't even know who that guy is, and I know everybody. I mean, anyone who, if you handicap college football, as we all do in this room, basically every quarterback that comes in.
Well, you're seeing some Holy Cross quarterbacks this year and Richmond quarterbacks. There's some kids from the FCS now coming up that you didn't see that in the past.
And the undrafted rookie free agent guys are the guys that you want to be a little bit careful of in the fourth quarter of these ball games. But I mean, I have a very strong rule in the NFL preseason, and it's paid me. I'm glad I had this rule. Is the reason I have it is because when I didn't have the rule, I would lose a lot of these bets. If you're laying points, if you're laying more than 2, right? 2 is that range where you kick, the 2-point conversion. But if you're saying you have to win by a margin in August, you got to win by a field goal or more, you better have a bet against to go with your bet on. And there's some reasons to like the Jets. I don't have any bet against on Atlanta. Atlanta's coming up, I've got very little info on the Falcons, but nothing that says we've got injuries somewhere, we've got a bad QB situation, we have a terrible track record, we're not going to play anyone in the secondary. There's no bet against for the Falcons. Therefore, there's no chance I'm going to be laying more than 2. And at 3.5, I won't get there.
And maybe I am looking at one and perhaps thinking this is what the coach is saying, but last year in the first series, in the first game, Devontae Freeman got hit and got a concussion. He talked about playing his ones and shouldn't be playing them. Number 2, he talked about his starters and only those guys that are dressed that are going to play, and there's going to be a lot of guys that aren't dressed. Yeah. And he said, this year I have a complete commitment to my rookies and first-year players only. So
nice.
Those are things
that's good stuff.
Yeah, and now, a couple notes, I also look at the Jets. Todd Bowles has been there. This is his 4th year. Mm-hmm. When games are in the Meadowlands, he's 7-1 ATS. That includes the home games and the games against the Giants. Mm-hmm. When he's away from the Meadowlands, he's 0-4. Mm-hmm. So the home team is 11-1 when Bowles is coaching in the Meadowlands.
Pretty good.
A note on the Falcons that I went through. Atlanta is 3-0 over week 1. They're 1-8 the other 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. Again, not that you're going to base a play on that, but coaching tendencies do tend to continue on. Also on Friday, Detroit and Oakland. This is something that, I just learned back in the North Coast days when we gave away preseason for free as a bonus. I always got burned whenever teams had joint practices. I just couldn't read them the same. And this is a game where they had to joint practices. Detroit played out at Oakland. Oakland, a 3-point favorite, a total of 36. For those that don't remember when Gruden coached, he was 30-16 straight up. He was 25-19-2 against the spread. He was 22-24 over/under. Again, numbers from a long time ago.
He won every week in week 1.
30 and you say that. Yeah.
But that's ancient history.
Yeah. So again, anything on this game, Dave, that you take out of Derek Carr and the Raiders against Matthew Stafford and Detroit Lions? We probably won't see either quarterback play in this game because of the joint practice.
Honestly, it's not a game. What am I going to do? Make up stuff? I have no opinion on the game. I think it's an interesting game to watch because I want to see what Gruden's approach is and maybe learn something for the next game. But for this game, I'm just strictly a spectator.
And that's really key, though. The concept of if you watch these preseason games, you're going to pick stuff up.
Yep.
You are, and that's one of the reasons that I make sure I've been a little bit compulsive with my preseason watching.
But that's
over
why
the years.
NFL Network is the greatest thing in the world because you will see every game. Yeah. Every game. And I will watch them all. Yeah. And it's beautiful. They fit them all into the 3-hour window so that,
and
you get all the action.
You can fast forward your commercials, but you can see what happens in the second half. You can say, hey, this offense works in the second half. This offense doesn't. These guys have no idea what they're doing. Wow, these guys have a nice, the execution level is there. Now, when you make these type of assessments in week 1, you can bet at week 2.
That's
you
right.
Bet at week 3. I'm always looking for a second-string offense, a third-string offense that catches my eye early. You find these hot preseason quarterbacks, even if you didn't bet them week 1, you can make money with them week 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, and I also want to wait and see what the hell. I always get with this chair just sunk on me.
Here,
I also want to check and see how organized the Raiders are. He's been away a long time. And I want to see cohesiveness on the coaching staff, getting the plays in on time, just how things are working, because it could be an adjustment period as far as that goes.
You guys had talked earlier on Las Vegas Sports Line. I was listening and talking about the Patriots and how they've gone over so much. Mm-hmm. Now, you do have Matt Patricia here as the head coach who used to be the DC at New England. I can tell you, these are preseason stats only. In the last 3 years, New England has finished number 32, allowing 407 yards per game last year, number 30, and number 27. So when you have that DC who didn't mind giving up those yards in New England as the defensive coordinator, he's now the head coach here. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to dictate over, but it's something to keep an eye on.
And certainly when you look at that strong trend of Patriots games going over, how much of that was Jimmy Garoppolo responsible for?
Absolutely.
I mean, he was responsible for a fair bit of it. We'll see if Danny Etling has the same type of success as Garoppolo has.
Moving to
tonight.
2 games on Saturday, Minnesota and Denver. We, of course, have Case Keenum switching teams. Mm-hmm. We also have Kyle Slaughter, who some people may not know about, but he was actually the quarterback that threw more passes for Denver last year in the preseason than anybody. He is now on Minnesota, knows the opposite team. Game is pick. Total 34.5. Teddy.
And it does feel like a pick. I mean, it genuinely, this is the type of game that you can say, who's going to win it? Somebody's going to get a 2-point conversion at the end. Yeah. And, we talked about this a little bit on air when we talked about the Hall of Fame game, where the line is just right where it's supposed to be. And I was frustrated perhaps that I didn't have a bet on the Bears in that game because the line was where it was supposed to be. And not that they were the right side, but they were the right side in the fourth quarter of that contest. And I don't have a strong sense of who the right side of the fourth quarter is. Mike Zimmer was a bet-on coach his first year in 2 years in Minnesota.
Yeah, still 14-3 the last 4 years.
But we saw last year against the spread that the markets had caught up with Minnesota, and all of a sudden you're seeing Minnesota laying, and you're seeing, and you look at the chalk record for the Vikings, and here, on the road against a team coming off a lousy season, against a coach who won't be back for year 3 if Denver doesn't win this year. In terms of actual urgency to win this game, there's none there for the Vikings.
But Zimmer has shown a tendency to want to win preseason games, if you want to call it. It's he does have a great track record in the preseason. By the way, one note of the Vikings, he is a take no bull kind of guy. Zimmer, he basically kicked 2 guys out of practice this week for trash talking. One of them was Diggs. I am a big Zimmer fan. He's just one of those granite-jawed guys. He's a football coach. He really is. He's going to get the most out of this team, but I don't know how much he cares about getting the most out of him here. I know he's got a track record in preseason that I mentioned, but it's a different situation now for the Vikings. They are going into the season knowing they're really good, one of the best teams in the league. And at this point, it becomes, look, the emphasis right now has to be, let's not lose any players in the preseason. Let's get through this and be ready for week 1.
Dave, on your point, they lost a player today, this morning. Offensive lineman Nick Easton just got put on the IR, and Nick Easton was a player that was playing center because Pat Elflein was on the PUP list. Yep. So they did lose an offensive starter today, this morning, on the IR. So when you talk about that, one note you talked about...
By the way, quick, I think the bettors will take the Vikings here. I don't know if they're right.
Denver is going to play their guys two starts. Very rarely does a court guy come out, a head coach, and say, we're going to play them 2 series, maybe a third, depending on what they get. And Vance Joseph did go 4-0, 3-0-1 against the spread last year. They were the number 1 team in the preseason at plus 14 points per game. They had the number 3 offense last year with those quarterbacks, and the number 4 defense only allowing 12.5 points per game.
Though the type of quarterbacks you were talking about with Simeon and Lynch and the like, not quarterbacks you want at all in a regular season game. But when you're talking about a QB competition like that, and there was open competition for the job last year, that certainly was at least the type of reason, like Brandon Weeden. I don't want Brandon Weeden in a regular season game, but I sure as hell want him against the second half, the third-string defense in August. Those can be bet on QBs. And obviously with all those QBs for Denver starting last year, they weren't good as starters, but in the preseason against second, third, and fourth-string defenders, I
talked about Kyle Slaughter, who was on Denver's roster last year.
Yeah.
Slaughter threw 43 passes in the preseason. That's more than Simeon or Lynch. So, now he's on the opposite team as well. Last preseason game to look at, it's Arizona and the Chargers. Arizona, 2.5-point favorite, a total of 36. Dave, any feelings on this game?
Won't be a game I'm involved in. Arizona's going to have to break in a rookie center. We talked about him coming out of Michigan, played tackle at Michigan, and they lost their first-string starting center for the Cardinals. But that might be an overrated injury because he wasn't a very good center anyway. He was, to me, one of the worst guys at his position last year. So that who knows if that's an upgrade or a downgrade quickly. I don't know. It's just, look, there's games I look for where I get information, and if it's not there, I just pass it, and this falls into the latter category. I haven't found anything, to me, really worthy of paying much attention to.
Arizona unique with 2 rookie quarterbacks this year. They have Rosen, who's going to play a lot, maybe the first half in this game, and then Chad Knuff, but it's not a game that I will have a play on at this point. Teddy, anything you're looking at in this game?
I'm not excited about laying with Arizona, although it is the first-time head coach getting an opportunity to win a home game. Though the Chargers, they got to worry about injuries. They have a team, as we talked about earlier, that has suffered a consistent bevy of injuries in recent years. Already in this training camp, they've lost multiple starters to season enders. Not getting hurt is going to be a big factor in that game plan as best they can, which means they may not be one of the more attractive underdogs on the slate.
Guys, we're going to transition right into baseball, and we're only going to talk about a couple series here because there's so many things wrapped up or not in contention. But this weekend, the Dodgers do travel to Colorado, and Washington travels to face the Cubs. The Dodgers a half game behind Arizona, Colorado 2.5 behind the Dodgers. On Friday, you have Mejida going against John Gray. And, Mejida, 3.12 ERA pre-All-Star break. His 4 starts since the All-Star break, a 6.88 ERA. Dave, your thoughts on the Dodgers traveling and facing Gray?
And I hate to cop out, but I don't do baseball until I know what's happened the night before. So anything I can say is I'm not going to say anything because it might indicate that I like a side, and then I might end up on the other side. So this is why baseball, to me, it's got to be a day of the game or wait until the game.
Playing that day before.
I have no idea what the bullpen usage is going to be in tonight's game, and so I just won't talk about the games. It's as simple as that.
Steady, John Gray. He made 1.5 ERA and a 25.7 strikeout to walk ratio his last 3 games. Colorado's been a solid favorite. Adding in Buehler and Freeland on the Saturday matchups with the Dodgers heading to Colorado, where do you see them? Do you think the Dodgers can spread the gap, or you think the Rockies can pull out a couple wins in this series?
Well, I mean, the one thing that stands out to me, you talk about the matchups for Friday and Saturday. One, John Gray is one guy that can pitch at Coors. And he's shown that.
Freeland's pitched incredible as well at home.
And Freeland has been the under machine. But Freeland's the number 1 under pitcher in baseball. I got him 17-6 to the under this year. No pitcher, no starter in the majors has more unders than Kyle Freeland, and only 6 overs on the season. So certainly Saturday's game initially, that's the way I would think. That's the initial thought process there. But I'm with Dave. This is a podcast. You want to give out good information. You want to get accurate information. And the accurate information is for both you and I. I'm not doing series prices in MLB. I'm doing MLB the night before and the day of, because you want the bullpen, you want the idea of what the lineups are doing, you want a team, you want to understand the form that the team is in and the actual team you're going to be betting on that night. In this, where you're pre-recording a podcast, sure, the general thought process, this is my first lean. I'm looking at Freeland under the total every time he pitches, and John Gray is another guy that I have no hesitation looking at unders and maybe to support, even though he's at times looks like he's turned the corner, and at times just continues to get
It's been hot since they called him back up from the AAA.
It's been
that demotion seemed to have sent a good message.
Yeah, Washington got a win today against Atlanta. They closed that gap a little bit.
They did, but the thing is, did it mean anything? I mean, this is why you have to look. To me, you have to look at what happened in the game. Atlanta's up 1-0 in the game. Anibal Sanchez got hit. Well, I guess he got hit by a batted ball. Calf injury. Had to leave after 2 innings. They brought in 2 guys who have never pitched in the major leagues before to fill 7 innings because they didn't want to eat up the bullpen with no day off. So to me, it's a throw. It became a throwaway game for the Braves, and that doesn't mean it was a particularly good performance by the Nationals.
Washington going to the Cubs. Cubs the best record in the NL, but only at 66-40. Anything stand out with Hellickson and Hendricks going on Friday, or Rourke and Lester going on Saturday?
Well, Hellickson's been another guy. Hellickson's been another guy that's cashed a whole lot of under tickets, which is not necessarily what you would expect. But the Cubs have a bullpen problem right now, and they're going to be laying. And
so does Washington, though. Because now they've lost. Doolittle's already out. Herrera, who's not the best clutch guy of all time, but now he's out. So they got their 8th and 9th inning guys effectively have now both hit the DL. So that's a problem for them, too.
Yeah, that being said, when you look at the Cubs in the 8th and 9th, I mean, the 8th's been their disaster inning. Yeah. And the 9th hasn't
really
been
missed Morrow.
All that much better necessarily for Chicago. And Chicago's going to be laying. The markets haven't suddenly fallen in love with the Nats. There's still a lot of reluctance here in Vegas to get on the Washington. I'm going to call it a bandwagon because people have been jumping off the bandwagon all year, but they've certainly been better over the last couple of weeks than they were going into the All-Star break. And still a team, when you look at their roster, player for player, the Nats are the best team in the NL East. They're supposed to win that division. They're supposed to make some noise. It hasn't necessarily happened yet.
No, their manager's he's one of the worst. He could be the worst in-game manager I've ever seen. I know it's his first year, but maybe some guys are bench coaches, and that might have been what Davey Martinez was. And maybe we're seeing why he got bypassed for a lot of managerial jobs that he interviewed for. He is clueless. His in-game strategy is mind-blowing at times.
And if you follow Dave on Twitter, you're well aware of that throughout the season.
I mean, I just, when you do really stupid shit that anybody can spot right before it happens, it's not. I don't second guess these guys. If when I'm on Twitter, I never second guess. I'll say that, boy, I disagree with what so and so is doing before. Because anybody, Monday morning quarterback, you leave that to Skip Bayless, and who somehow gets it wrong even after the fact, which is incredible. But the second, that's useless. In our business, you get conditioned to trying to figure out what happens before it happens. Doesn't mean you're always going to be right. But if you're going to take a stance on Twitter and say so-and-so is doing a bad job, you have to say why before you get the result. Hey, after the result, I guarantee you I can get close to 100% after the fact.
One note on Hendricks. His last 3 starts, a 22-0 strikeout-to-walk ratio. He's really gotten that curveball in play, throwing a nice curveball. And on Saturday, Rourke, who had the Nationals, had 7 straight losses between June 12th and July 3rd. His last 3 starts, he's pitched 8, 7, and 7 innings, 1 earned run, a 19-1 strikeout-walk ratio.
Yeah, it looks like the Cubs have finally moved Chatwood out of the rotation, huh? I haven't seen his name as a starting pitcher lately.
No walks?
Oh, my God. Do you ever see anything like that? It was incredible.
We are finished with this weekend series.
I was going to say Rick Ankiel thought he was wild. And by the way, have you seen this on Rick Ankiel?
No.
He's going to attempt a comeback as a relief pitcher. Seriously.
I did see
he's looking
something
to get. He's 39. He wants to get himself in big league shape.
He's been watching the blow and saves this year. He figures I could do that too.
Really, huh?
He probably could. I mean, when you think about it, the old guys. Why don't we see more old guys just throwing gas for 1 inning? Bullpen.
I don't disagree with that. The question is whether Ankiel can get over the yips and throw the ball in the strike zone. But he's a strong guy, and you never know.
We're going to take a short break, and we're back with our last segment, the best bets for the weekend. We'll have a best bet from each of us, and right after this break. Welcome back. This is the WagerTalk Podcast. You've been waiting for it the entire show. It is the best bets. I'm joined in studio with Dave Cokin and Teddy Covers. I'm Ralph Michaels. Dave, why don't you start us off? Football is back. I am so thankful, even though it's preseason, football is still king. I love football.
I'll go. The number's gotten away, so I can't say it's a great play at this number in terms of value, but I still like the side. Anyway, I think there's going to be some positives in terms of having an edge going into this game. We'll see on the margin, but Jets, the green slime with their three quarterbacks battling, although only I think two of them will see action in this game among the three that are battling. But I think the Jets are winners at home against the Falcons, who I suspect just want to get the game done with. And I don't think you're going to see much out of the Falcons till the dress rehearsal week 3.
I'll tell you what, when you get a situation and you get a game one that only two quarterbacks are going to play, that's a huge edge in itself. You're not going through a lot of transitions. You don't have those quarterbacks warming up. I'm going to stay in the NFL and get a Saturday and use Minnesota and Denver over 34.5. You have the Case Keenum going from Minnesota to Denver. As I said, you have the backup quarterback for Denver now on Minnesota. I think both teams will score a few touchdowns. I like the over. Again, that's over 34.5. Teddy's looking at a baseball play for us. Teddy, take it away.
Yeah, well, let's go to one of the teams we talked about earlier in the show. We've got basically even money for the Dodgers and the Rockies for Friday. And this is a Colorado team that has been pretty good about doing this type of stuff, cashing tickets against superior teams. In fact, I think there's a 13-0 angle on the Rockies coming off a win, playing a team with a better record than they have. Well, that comes into play. Let's take a look at Colorado with John Gray.
Guys, we appreciate you joining us. Marco, I hope you have a great weekend up in Seattle watching Pearl Jam. From Dave Cokin, Teddy Covers, Mark Seidel behind the controls, and our man Johnny Detroit, who gets this out to all of our listeners, we thank you. We'll be back next Thursday with another podcast.